So I want to talk about marketing data today. So I've been working in the data engineering space in one shape or another for a little over a decade now. It's been a winding path. I've done it as an analyst, or actually more like a reporting jockey than a proper analyst. I've done it as a software developer. I've done it as a data engineer. I've done it in a consulting role and in a project management role. I've even gotten to play the sales role a couple times against my will when I've needed to. So I've been all over the place, and it's taken me to a lot of different industries and a lot of different verticals. But I started with a company called TMM, and that stood for Track My Marketing. So it started in the data for marketing departments space. And I can remember coming to conferences like this 8 to 10 years ago and working really hard to convince marketers or people in marketing roles that they should care about data management at all. The ETL software was anything they needed to have heard of, and that it had a place in their department or their organization. I got a lot of, we manage things in Excel. We upload it to Adobe Analytics. We're sure there's no issues there. We're doing really good. And that space started to grow, and I think we've come a long way since then. So if I got up here today and I tried to tell you all of the reasons why you need to care about your marketing tech stack and the way you're managing data and the way you're moving data around, you'd be telling me, yes, I've heard this 1,000 times. Please stop talking to me about data. But what I've noticed is that even though we've kind of accepted this globally as something that matters and something that we care about, it's not always easy still to identify where problems are. We may know we have issues somewhere in our data pipeline, or if we've identified problems, it's hard to determine which ones we want to tackle solving, what the best solutions are, and how we're going to prioritize those. So I'm hoping that what I can do today is give you some tools to help do that, to go identify issues, prioritize what you're going to solve and how you're going to solve it. And what I'd like to do is do that in a way that hopefully you can go back and start doing that with the team and with the resources that you have today. Because I don't know the size of the companies you're from. I don't know if you've got an engineering department or a chief data officer who can help you accomplish these goals. We learned this morning that your director of IT is apparently the most miserable person in your organization, and they've got a long backlog. You might have vendors, software vendors or consultants that you can work with to help you on things, but they've got a long backlog too, and they cost money, obviously. So I'd like to focus on what you can do with a key group that you already have to go ahead and do some detection and prioritization. So I want to start by describing that key group. Who's going to use this if you want to go enact the things we talk about today? I think you can get it done with 3 people. The more the merrier. If you can get more people on board to work with you, and you'll definitely have to pull in folks from other teams and departments to do it. But you can get started with these 3 roles. So you're going to need a leader, and the leader's pretty easy to identify. If you're the one who takes some notes today and says, boy, I really want to go back and act on this and do some of this and look into these things, and you're excited about it, you're probably the leader. The leader needs to have a vision, needs to want to do something, needs to organize others and bring them on board. Needs to own the process and the outcome and say, I'm going to run this and be responsible for it being effective, because we all know if you have multiple people in charge, then nobody's in charge. And the leader needs to communicate both with the folks that you're pulling in and the folks that you're reporting up to on what you're doing. You're going to need an executor, at least one. And the leader's going to do a lot of execution, but probably can't do it all. So someone to help wrangle help from other folks. Do some interviews, make some calls, maybe put out some surveys, gather information, put together some output from what you're doing. And then you're going to need a champion. So if you're a VP or director sitting here, or if you've got a C in your title, this is you. Because if someone's trying to take time out of their busy day to do some data initiative analysis, wants to improve processes, improve the way you use technology. No one's sitting around twiddling their thumbs. So there's going to be some other things that are going to have to be deprioritized. And if there's not someone making the case at the top level that this is valuable, that this is worth investing time in and investing resources in, then it's not going to happen. And then all three of these roles and whoever else you bring in are going to need to work together to analyze information, make decisions out of it, and follow up with next steps. So that's your team. This is the fanciest slide I've got. This is as good as my graphics get, or a couple arrows, so take it in. We're going to use three concepts as our framework for looking into this. We're going to look at efficiency, accuracy, and trust, okay? So efficiency and accuracy, I chose those because we can bucket a lot of different data issues that we see into those two groups. Now, you can get a lot more granular than that. You can talk about access issues, governance issues, freshness and recency, volume and management. You can talk about a lot of things, but you can often make one of those two buckets hold the problem you're talking about. Either accuracy, do I have the information I need? Do I know that it's correct? Can I act on it appropriately? And efficiency, can I get it in a timely manner? Is it worth the resources I'm spending to make it happen? Okay? And then I want to look at the concept of trust. And I have to give a quick mention to Stephen Covey. I don't know if anyone's familiar or has read, I think, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Yep. He also has a book called The Speed of Trust that is definitely worth a read or a listen, whichever you prefer. And Covey gives a great equation around trust in organizations in that. He says when trust is high, then speed goes up and cost goes down. And when trust is low, then cost goes up and speed goes down. And that point really hit the mark with me. And I started looking at some of the active projects we're involved in and the projects we've been involved in over the past, and seeing how can we apply that concept of trust to this world of data and data management. And what we found is that trust relates really closely to these ideas of efficiency and accuracy. And we see that when trust is low, and we'll talk about some of the ways trust can be low in the context of data, when trust is low, efficiency and accuracy are at odds with each other. So you may run into an accuracy problem and you want to solve that. You're going to get your accurate numbers by the end, but you'll have sacrificed a lot of efficiency in the process. Or the other way around, you can target efficiency. You want to move fast, you want to be agile, you want to make things happen, and you end up sacrificing accuracy. But when trust is high, accuracy and efficiency can coexist. They don't automatically both go up, but you're capable of addressing one and raising one without sacrificing the other. And so what happens is efficiency and accuracy are a lot easier to detect. They're easier to notice than trust issues are. So those end up being our symptoms. They're going to be how we identify the problems that we want to solve in our data pipeline. But we can usually get a lot more bang for our buck, more result for our efforts, by finding where there are underlying trust issues and fixing those first, instead of fighting the pool between efficiency and accuracy. So we'll use efficiency and accuracy to detect. We'll use trust to prioritize. The way I want to work through this is I want to share some real-world scenarios, case studies from past projects, and I've crammed a few together that didn't all really come from the same company and put them together in one fake company, the recruitment marketing department at Blue Lizard Logistics. It took me a few tries to come up with a name of a company that didn't already exist out there somewhere. So that's what we've got. We're going with Blue Lizard. And I picked recruitment marketing because I think it's an interesting use case. Is anybody here in recruitment marketing and candidate marketing? Okay. So in that scenario, right, it's a little bit the same, a little bit different. You're working, the leads you're bringing in, you're hoping that they convert not necessarily to sales, but to applicants, and ideally to applicants that become hires or are at least worthy of hiring, right? So we're going to look at that scenario, and we're going to walk through a three-step process that hopefully you can act on yourselves. So we're going to build a quick and dirty data landscape. Then we're going to use efficiency and accuracy to identify issues. And then we're going to use trust to prioritize solutions. So we'll start with building a data landscape. You've probably heard people use the three words people, process, and technology a million times, and I'm going to stick with them. They're a good way to look at things and to organize things. So we want to take stock of the people, the process, and the technology within our scope. We want to keep it simple, right? If I was hiring someone to build a data landscape report for me, I'd want them to give me nice graphics and pipelines and call-outs of where people are and things. But if I'm doing this myself internally, I'm going to focus on a list and what I can put together easily with my team. And we're going to focus on a good representation of the key pieces, not exhaustively documenting every single bit of the business we can dive into. So our data landscape for Blue Lizard, we're going to start by looking at the technology in the recruitment marketing department. And we're going to say they've got some project management software. They're using that for a number of things, but they're using it to plan new campaigns, initiatives that they're going to be putting out soon. And they've got an ad-serving platform, really probably 6 or 7, but they've got an ad-serving platform that they're putting out paid search and display ads through. They've got analytics software that they're using on the website end to report on user activity once those folks hit the website. What do? They've got their hiring software, of course, where folks who apply end up in. They go through the pipeline there. Applications, interviews, and offers are all managed there. And they've got a data management platform, which in these real-world scenarios is where I was involved, that they used to do a couple things. They used it to collect campaign metadata. So they've got users kind of filling out a form with, here's what I plan to put out, here's the country I'm targeting, here's the landing page, and it gives them a little tracking code to go use so that the analytics software picks stuff up, right? And they're using that also to do some ETL, to pull things out of platforms and moving them into others. So once we've documented our technology, we want to take a look at our processes, and we're going to break these into 2 camps. We're going to look at automated processes, and then we'll look at manual processes. So in our use case here, we've got a process from the hiring platform to the analytics platform. Fortunately, it had an out-of-the-box integration. So when we've got a user who's applied, now we can get into our analytics software and we have some information about that user attached to their applicant ID. We've got another integration with the hiring platform that goes through the data management platform and basically then enriches that ID with additional information about what step are they in the process, are they on the 3rd interview, have they been given an offer yet, things like that. They have an ads to analytics integration, so they're getting reported data from their ads, right? They're picking up those tracking codes and the links so they know something about the campaigns and the ads that went out when they're looking at the analytics side. And then they also have a data management platform to the analytics that's enriching that data with what was collected through the forms. So those are their automated technology-driven processes. They've also got some manual processes. So they're doing campaign planning up front, and that's what they're doing in their project management software. We've got a leadership team that plans campaigns, documents plans, and assigns tasks. They've got a campaign tagging and approval process. So if I want to go launch a campaign, get some tracking codes, I enter that data, but it's got to go to an approver who reviews that before it gets approved and I get my tracking codes back. So that's got to be signed off on and edited if I did something wrong. We've got ad performance reporting. Obviously, there's business users that want to know, okay, how are our campaigns performing? Let's look at this in the analytics, drill down into the report, right? And then we've got viable candidate reporting. So they're working on a periodic report to show to upper management leadership how many quality candidates did we drive during this past time period. So not just applicants, but applicants who were really worth the effort we put into bringing them in. And then after we've looked at the technology and looked at the processes, you want to take stock of the people. These can be individuals. They might just be roles and groups, so you don't need to write out everybody who touches that campaign submission process. But you want to take stock of who are the users, so the people who follow a process or submit information into a platform. Who are the owners, the people who manage a platform or oversee the process, usually the folks who have the most stake in things being followed. And then you have the consumers, the people who are looking at reports or receiving other outputs, taking this out on the other end. So we want to identify those, have those in our pockets, labeled along with our groups to go forward. So just to summarize again, data landscape is the first step. The goal is to map out the technology, the process, and the people that we have so we can see the framework that we're looking at, and then we're going to go into looking for some efficiency and accuracy issues. So evaluating accuracy and efficiency is fortunately really easy because people will love to talk about what is frustrating about either the processes or the technology that they're using. The folks you have had down as owners or as users are often going to have a lot of insights about efficiency. And the ones you have down as owners or consumers are going to have a lot of insights about accuracy. Do I trust these numbers? Would I act on this report? And the best way to dig into this is just have some conversations. And this is where you got to invest a lot of time. Do some one-on-ones, talk to a department or a team together, and just let people talk about what are my accuracy issues, what are my efficiency issues, and as they come in, try to group them into those two buckets so that then we can review and start looking for the right solutions. Some examples from our use cases here. We, in these projects, found 2 efficiency and 1 accuracy issue. So we had a campaign approval process that I talked about that was slow. It took up a lot of time. Folks wanted to launch campaigns quickly, but they had to wait for this approval process. This was a global team, so they were doing this 24 hours a day, which meant approvers had to be on availability 24 hours a day, or else things held up and got moved. And often, things had to be edited. Things had to be resubmitted. So we got a big source of feedback about this being a painful process. We also saw efficiency issues with the viable candidate reporting. So this took a lot of manual effort. It needed to use information from the analytics about traffic and what was coming, but there needed to be reports out of the hiring system that still wasn't fully integrated. There was a lot of just manual time at the management level putting these reports together for the leadership level. And it was taking a ton of effort and often was not done on time. It was often a week or 2 after it was supposed to be reviewed that process was complete. And then we had an accuracy issue because we want to go look at ad performance at the end of a period, and we'd see that the numbers reported by the ad platform were not matching up with the analytics platform. We'd say, okay, well, this says I had this many clicks on this link that drove to this page, but that doesn't match the number of people that the analytics software showed up on this page, things like that, which when you're trying to look at the cost, what you spent on the ad spend and how that drove through to people who visited and converted, was a concerning issue. There was a problem acting on those numbers because they didn't match up, so it was hard to tell what's right and what is it telling me. So we want to take these issues and instead of just trying to say, okay, there's an efficiency problem, I want to solve it. There's an accuracy problem, I want to solve it. And we want to take a chance to look at some of the trust issues or see where we can find a trust issue that might be underneath that. And these are going to be harder to identify than efficiency and accuracy were because people aren't used to thinking in these terms. The best question I've found to start asking with is just, why does this process exist? Especially if folks are saying, oh, this is frustrating, I have to do this, X, Y, or all these, these numbers are bad, I don't trust it. Well, why do we do it this way? And you might have to bounce through a couple people before you can actually find the one who knows the answer. And then it's good to dig deeper with questions like, do I trust the people who use this process to do it completely? Do I feel like I know what I'm doing when I use this software? Do I believe that the current process accurately reflects my performance? This is a big one that we'll get into in a minute. And would I make decisions based on this report without double checking it against another source? You can get deeper with more other questions. Those are a great start. Those kind of hit at some of the key problems. And it can be really helpful if you're working with a large team to just do some simple surveys. Put out something with Google surveys, or if you're Microsoft Suite, you put out a little form and just see what you can get back that starts to hint at an underlying trust issue. So to help you work on identifying those, I'm gonna share the trust issues that we found that were underneath the efficiency and accuracy issues here. So we'll talk about that approval workflow that was a burden. If we just look at the efficiency problem, we say, well, maybe we need to add more approval staff so it's faster. That's probably not a good idea. Maybe we want to make the approval workflow simpler. And I will admit that we tried doing that, which was the wrong solution, for about 3 years with this customer. We went year after year saying, okay, new initiative, we've got some ideas, they've got some ideas, here's how we're going to make the forms easier to fill out, here's how we're going to make it quicker for the approvals to approve. We kept trying to make that process simpler until we finally got to asking, well, why does this process exist this way? And it came down to a trust issue. It was that the leadership didn't trust the submitters to enter the correct information. And in fact, it was often wrong. And we found that what the approvers were doing basically was they were going back to that project management tool where the plans were documented from the get-go. And they were comparing the information that had been entered to say, okay, does this target audience actually go with this initiative? Or is this something we're actually targeting to this geo right now? They were just matching up against there, and that's where they were rejecting and going back and saying, hey, you didn't match the plan. Go back and change it to match the plan. And so we finally found the solution that would solve that trust issue, is that we were working with data management software that had a custom integration layer. We built an integration between the project management tool and the data management platform so that we could pull 80% of the information they had to fill out right from the source that they were supposed to match. So all of a sudden they start by picking a project ID instead of entering 2 pages of information. And surprise, the error rate and the approval rejection rate went way down, and the time suck for both the submitters and the approvers was vastly improved. We also found an underlying trust issue with the viable candidate report. This is the one that was time-consuming and often late. And this customer came to us saying, hey, this takes us a ton of work. Can we find some ways to automate pulling this stuff together? And we could have done that. It would have been a long, complicated, involved project, but we could have automated the report that they were creating. But again, we got into the why this process and this report existed. And we found a trust issue that was there. You see, this team, this recruitment marketing team, they were being evaluated by whether they brought candidates that basically qualified to receive an offer. But there was a big gap where if I was a great applicant, I aced my interviews, everything went well, I got an offer, but I got a better offer from a different company. Or decided I actually don't want to leave where I am. Or, you know what, I thought I wanted to move to where you were located, but I'm not now. So we had a qualified person who was given an offer, who then turned that offer down for some reason. And with the current implementation, the way everything was set up, the analytics software that they were supposed to be running these reports through to begin with didn't distinguish between someone who never got an offer and someone who got an offer and said, actually, no, they just both ended up with a status of did not hire. And so instead, because our data management platform was already moving information between the hiring system and the analytics system, we could, with very low time investment, create a process that simply added a dimension to their analytics software, and populated that dimension not with the most recent candidate status, but the best status that candidate had ever reached. And so we could track this idea of lifetime quality, whether they took a job or not. Did this candidate become a viable, valuable candidate? And the team reading the reports was able to go back to pulling them straight from the analytics software. So there was no time, labor-intensive issue of trying to deliver a complex report on time. And it was more accurate. And the team that was handling these efforts had the confidence now that they were being correctly evaluated. Whenever you have someone not sure if their contribution's being evaluated fairly or correctly, you always run into trust issues there. The last one we'll take a look at is the accuracy issue. So the ad platform and the analytics platform numbers didn't match up. Again, there were some treat the symptoms options here. We were looking at kind of reconciliation reporting, so a big manual task kind of at the end of a period to say, well, here's what we have out of this platform, here's what we have out of this platform, how do we explain the gaps here in a way that makes sense? And we could say, well, you know what, we'll just use data from one platform and not trust any of the data from the other, and that's not really a great issue too. The underlying trust issue that we found here was really just that the analytics platform was well ingrained, well trusted, well understood in the organization and had been used for a long time. The ads platform was newer. It wasn't as well understood. There was some confusion on the reporting end about, well, when I break down by this granularity versus this granularity, how do my unique accounts work? And there was less of a relationship between the provider and the customer in that case. And so we didn't come up with a final trust solution to act on here. We had some ideas. Maybe we just need new training. Maybe we need better engagement with the ad platform offer. Maybe if there is an issue there with how we feel about that vendor, maybe we need to look at other ad platforms. But this is a good example of a time where we ended up prioritizing other solutions because we were able to identify big wins with good investment. Whereas this was a more amorphous that we said, well, let's keep it on our radar, keep considering, see what we want to do down the line. I do want to break out of my plan pattern here because there's another item I want to talk about with third-party vendors because I've been one a lot of times, and I didn't think I'd have time to get into it, but it looks like I've got plenty. If you work with any outside technology or consulting vendor, and especially if you work with a few, which you probably do, I would advise you to go home and look up trusted advisor ratings. Because the customer success departments at those organizations are putting a lot of work into figuring out whether you consider them a trusted advisor or not. And they've got a scale that goes from vendor, someone will go buy software from, down at the bottom, to preferred vendor. Maybe I'll check with them first, to partner. We're going to work together. I'm going to give you first look at things, up to a trusted advisor. I'm going to bring you in when I haven't even determined how I'm going to solve the problem yet. I want you with me up front. They're working on evaluating that for you, and I think it's valuable for you to evaluate that for them as well. And the reason is a question that we run into in all data management, but in the marketing data world especially, is do I go with a full solution or the Frankenstack of different tools, right? Do I want to go all in on Adobe and use Marketo and use Adobe Analytics and use Experience Manager and use Audience Manager? Or do I want to have some, Salesforce and some CRM and, some Alteryx and some Tableau and kind of build my own stack? And they both have advantages and disadvantages. I think one of the times where the advantage of the whole solution overpowers the disadvantage of vendor lock-in is when you have a vendor like that you consider truly a trusted advisor. If you've got that kind of trust with a third party, and you encounter issues, bring it to them and say, hey, can you solve this problem if I actually move from here over to you? And what would you tell me about? Now, you don't want to do that with anybody because everyone wants to say yes because it's your business, right? But if there's someone that you really have worked with for years and that relationship's good and you trust them to keep your best interests at heart, consider looking to see how they can come in and solve some of those issues for you. So using trust to prioritize, I know I talked about these all in the past because these were real scenarios, but pretend we're looking at this for a brand new time. We've identified 3 issues. Within those, we've identified 2 clear trust issues that underlie them. And we found with the viable candidate report especially, we can get a big win with very little investment. So we're going to tackle that one first and use trust to put that at the top of our list. And then we've also found that the campaign approval process, it's going to be a little more involved, but we can get a really big win there too. So maybe it's not our first step, but we're going to plan and prioritize and say, okay, how soon can we make that happen? Because we're going to get a lot out of that project. And then we had our third one kind of say, we didn't find a clear big win, so we didn't put it at the top of our list for now. So to summarize that, take it back to the top. The process, if you want to go back and start it today, is take stock of your data landscape, identify the technology that you're working with, the automated and the manual processes that are driving things, and who are your users, your owners, and your consumers. You want to work with those users, owners, and consumers to identify where you have issues and bucket them into accuracy and efficiency. And then you want to analyze trust and try to find where is there an underlying trust issue here. And then use that trust to identify what the right solutions are to treat the symptom instead of the problem. And then prioritize where you're going to get the best impact for your investment. And it's taken me right about to 10 minutes left for questions. So I will give us a chance to see if we've got it. Oh, yeah.
So when you're wait. Where's the catch box? Let's get the catch box. Okay. There you go. So sorry if I missed this part, but so you're gathering data from all these different sources, but where do you compile it all? Is there one central location where you pull in all the data from all the different sources?
Yeah, so I'm stepping somewhere where I'm getting buzz or something. There we go. So there's a lot of different answers to that. So I've worked with companies where we've built and sold data management software. So we're always excited about the idea of bringing it into one place together, right? Managing it in a self-serve data warehouse. But I really think you got to take a project-based approach with that. For example, if there's already, when we have an out-of-the-box integration, maybe between 2 pieces of software you're using, I'm not going to push to pull that into another piece of software just to do that. Now, on the other hand, if you've got software over here and half your users are getting your numbers out of that, and then half your users are getting their numbers out of this tool here, and so you have kind of a siloed data issue, then we're going to push for data integration to make sure we've got one source of truth. But I guess the short answer is, yes, often, we're bringing things into a data warehouse with some ETL around it, but that's not a one-size-fits-all solution.
Gotcha. Okay. Helpful. Thanks.
All right. So back here.
Any other questions?
Yeah. Right. Good throw. Quick question for you regarding, on a more granular level, when you approach a company and want to create a system and you have a lot of data points, and how do you change that company's culture when it comes to something as granular as naming conventions and such? So do you begin to establish a different culture? Do you introduce new naming conventions? or do you use the metrics that they already have at hand?
Yeah. So I'd say we generally start with the convention and the metrics that they already have on hand. That's the path of least resistance, right? And I'm not about disrupting that just to kind of make a point and do it my way. There are times when you do want to try to change that is when the juice isn't worth the squeeze, basically, when keeping the systems that you have or the conventions that you have are causing issues. We've run into this a lot with the campaign tracking use case. So often people have an idea of the way they want their UTM or their CID parameters to be built out, and they don't want to change that. And oftentimes that's fine. But I've run into scenarios where that means we're putting out paid search ads, and we have a naming convention that wants to include keyword in the tracking code, and we're submitting these to get approved. And so we have folks that are trying to enter 10,000 different keywords in a submission to get 10,000 different tracking codes. And that's a point where we'll push a little harder and say, the ad platform can generate an ID here. And if you're okay with just seeing that ID on this end, we'll make sure all the keyword data makes it through to the other end. And we're going to save you a lot of time, and we're going to save you a lot of errors by taking that approach. Any other questions? One more. Yeah.
So in the case of the recruitment marketers, what was their initial ask? Like they came, and sorry again if I missed that part, but they came and said what? It takes us too long, or the candidates are no good, or what did they say?
They actually came and said, we're doing this whole submission and approval process by emailing Excel spreadsheets to each other. We hear your platform can automate that. And so we started with that. And that was our first initial use case, was just the tracking codes there. We had a long relationship with that customer, so we grew into other items from there. But yeah, we come back and revisit, hey, this process is hard and unruly. How do we fix it? How do we fix it? Until we finally found the underlying issue to tackle there.
I'm curious, what are some other types of use cases that you could use this for? Because it sounds like a broken process use case, or maybe a missing tech.
Yeah.
But could you use that same process of looking at efficiency and trust factors and accuracy to do things like glean insights out of data sets?
Yeah, absolutely. I hadn't considered it that way, putting this together, but I think it is a really handy framework to kind of pick up where the issues are and then dig into the problem underneath. Again, another example, kind of more on the technical side again, but I've been talking to a group that is trying to move a staffing platform from an on-premise environment to a cloud environment. And they haven't yet, and it's an issue because they've got users. They've got this running on a single desktop, and users throughout the country are VPNing into that desktop to use this software, and it goes down. That's a huge problem. So I asked them, well, why does the software not offer a cloud version? He says, oh no, they do. Okay, do they not offer migration services? Oh no, they do. They offer those. Is it too expensive? No, we've got a huge budget. Okay, why haven't you moved? And they're like, well, there's this one process HR does, and we're just really not sure that it's going to work after we move everything. And that would be devastating. So again, we got, what looked like we don't have the resources or we don't have the time to move this, really came down to, we don't trust they're going to deliver what they say they're going to deliver, and we're afraid of what's going to happen. So we're looking at, how can we address that? Is there an integration we can build out? Can we get together and, how can they prove that out to us that it's going to work on the other end? So yeah, it does, I think, have a broad scope of application. Yeah. Cool. All right. I got about 30 seconds. Thank you guys very much for your time. It's been fun getting to share, and I'm looking forward to Chris coming up next.